While millions of people are shouting at their screens, wearing team colors like armor, and feeling personally crushed because 11 strangers missed a shot, there's a huge group of people sitting there thinking, I truly do not care. And neuroscience suggests that might not be random. It might actually reflect a different wiring pattern in the brain. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear might completely shift how you view the sports-obsessed people in your life. Let's clear something up first. Not caring about sports doesn't make you dull. It doesn't mean you lack intensity or loyalty, and it absolutely doesn't mean you're defective. But there is something genuinely interesting happening neurologically that separates you from the roughly 60% of Americans who follow sports almost religiously. So why do so many people care so deeply? Humans evolved in tribes. For most of our history, belonging wasn't optional, it was survival. Your group protected you, fed you, defended you. Modern sports teams function like symbolic tribes, just with jerseys and stadium lighting. When someone watches their favorite team, their brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, the same chemical involved in family attachment. Their nervous system responds as if those athletes are part of their inner circle. It's surprisingly primal. But here's where it shifts. People who feel indifferent towards sports often score lower on what psychologists call tribal orientation. Their sense of identity isn't heavily rooted in group allegiance. They're more comfortable standing alone, more likely to think, I don't need collective identity to feel grounded. Research backs this up. A 2019 study showed that individuals with low sports interest displayed significantly less us versus them bias. Translation? They're less likely to automatically dislike someone just because they root for a different team. Now let's talk brain chemistry, because this part is wild. That anticipation you feel before opening a gift, that spike of excitement, that's dopamine. Sports fans experience similar dopamine surges during games, play after play, possession after possession, small bursts of anticipation and reward, over and over. It creates a feedback loop that can be intensely compelling. fMRI studies show that watching your team activate reward circuits similar to those involved in gambling and other highly stimulating behaviors. And the unpredictability is the secret ingredient. You don't know if your team will win, and that uncertainty keeps dopamine cycling. Psychologists call it intermittent reinforcement, the most powerful reward schedule we know. It's the same mechanism that makes slot machines so hard to walk away from. The brain doesn't really care where dopamine comes from, it just wants more of it. If you don't care about sports, it may simply mean your dopamine system isn't especially reactive to vicarious competition. And yes, there's evidence that genetics could play a role. Research from the University of Chicago has linked variations in dopamine receptor genes to differences in how strongly people respond to competitive spectator events. In other words, your complete indifference to whether the Lakers win might not be a personality flaw, it might be biological. There's another psychological layer here. Sports fans often engage in something called burging, basking in reflected glory. When their team wins, they say, we won. When the team loses, they lost. Notice the subtle shift. It's a protective psychological move. People who aren't invested in sports tend to show less of this pattern. Their sense of identity feels more internally anchored. Their sense of success isn't borrowed from an external scoreboard. Their self-esteem is often less dependent on outcomes they can't influence. Now, before anyone feels attacked, this isn't about better or worse, it's about difference. Here's something counterintuitive. Sports fans frequently score higher on certain empathy measures. They practice emotional investment in strangers, caring deeply about their triumphs and failures. That's real emotional engagement. So why don't non-sports people extend that same emotional bandwidth to athletes? It often comes down to empathy allocation. Emotional energy is finite. People who aren't drawn to sports often direct their care elsewhere: creative work, personal relationships, social causes, art, music, intellectual exploration. A 2021 study found that individuals with low sports interest scored higher in openness to experience and appreciation for aesthetics. They're still chasing meaning and connection, they're just sourcing it differently. And let's acknowledge something honest. For some people, indifference towards sports isn't purely neurological, it can be experiential. Maybe gym class felt humiliating. Maybe sports culture felt exclusionary or hyper-competitive. Maybe the loud aggression surrounding fandom never resonated. Or maybe you just genuinely find it uninteresting. All of those are valid pathways. But here's the deeper divide between sports fans and non-sports. It's about where you locate meaning. Sports fans find meaning in narrative arcs, the comeback story, the underdog victory, the dynasty, the rivalry. It's live drama with real stakes. It mirrors mythic storytelling in real time. People who don't care about sports often look at that randomness and think, why emotionally invest in an outcome I can't influence, involving people I don't know, in a game that doesn't affect my life? From their perspective, the meaning feels outsourced. Neither perspective is wrong. One group finds epic storytelling in a championship run, the other finds it in a novel, a relationship, a research breakthrough, a creative endeavor. Both are responding to the same human drive for story, just in different arenas. Researchers sometimes frame this as parasocial investment versus direct participation. Sports fans build one-sided bonds with teams and players. Non-sports individuals often prefer emotional exchanges where there's reciprocity, where their presence influences the outcome. They'd rather be on the field of their own life than in the stands. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who studied flow states, found that deep absorption, that feeling of losing yourself in something meaningful, can happen in countless ways. For some, it's a live game. For others, it's painting, coding, gardening, writing, hiking, building, solving, creating. Interestingly, people who don't obsess over sports often report feeling more present in their own experiences. They're not spending entire Sundays riding the emotional roller coaster of someone else's performance. They're investing that energy elsewhere. There's something quietly powerful about that. So what does this actually mean? If you don't care about sports, you're not missing a universal human ritual. You're not disconnected from culture. You're not less passionate. Your reward circuits, your tribal tendencies, your empathy focus, they're simply calibrated differently. The next time someone asks, "Did you catch the game?" and you truly couldn't care less, remember this: you're not broken, you're not boring, you're just wired for a different kind of meaning. And maybe, just maybe, you're playing a different game entirely. If this resonated with you, you'll probably be fascinated by why quiet thinkers process the world differently than louder personalities, and why that difference can be a massive advantage.